All right, folks, here we go, finishing up the notes for Chapter 2, and we're going to start this time around with continuing that talk about some of the synergy that we were mentioning at the end of the last section, talking about alliances and partnerships. A strategic alliance is defined as an association designed to provide benefits for each of its members. And those alliances can happen in many different ways. Some of the ones that we'll look at include mergers and acquisitions, joint ownerships, joint ventures, and formal and informal cooperative ventures. Alliances can also be formed within industries or between industries. So we tend to think a lot about, it not being such a far-fetched idea for a network to partner with a production house and or with a syndicator in order to get programming out there for the mutual financial benefit of all parties involved. But it can happen, as I mentioned earlier, between direct competitors as well. Strategic planning among all parties should drive the basis of an alliance. Such planning should involve an objective evaluation of each business activity. What are they really doing? What are they up to? Their target market. Who are they after? Who do they want consuming their product? And therefore, if advertising is involved, who are they seeking out as advertising clients to reach that audience? Thirdly, the competitive advantages and disadvantages drawn from the alliance. What are the pros and cons? Who's going to make out better in this deal? And is that okay or not okay? And then strategies to implement the alliance. What are the action steps? How is it all exactly going to work? And without this comprehensive examination, the alliance can suffer because, as much as we may partner with anybody and everybody, we still kind of have this sense that we trust nobody. And business kind of revolves around that premise, especially when you're dealing with those with other interests. So one of the things that happens really in any sort of decision-making process is what's called a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis tactics consider four important components: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So your strengths and weaknesses are what are considered internal factors. These are things within the particular enterprise that you're dealing with. This is the stuff that you, for the most part, have a good deal of control over. These are things that you can more easily change or use to your advantage. Strengths, obviously, are the things you do well. Weaknesses are where you have some challenges and may need to do some growth, some development, some changes in one way or another. Internal factors within the enterprise, strengths and weaknesses. Opportunities and threats are considered external factors. These things come from the environment in which you are in. These are things that others may do that are not really within your control that can also affect the overall outcome of a particular venture. Reactions from the public, your competition, the demand for a certain product or service that you're trying to provide. Those things are all external factors. So there's some examples of alliances from within your textbook. I would encourage you to take a look at those and kind of get a sense of some of the ways that different groups have been trying to work together. And as you look at these, that you would maybe ask yourself how well some of these things are doing. If you see the benefits, if you've seen that there's been some progress that has been made, either for the benefit of certain companies or the benefit of an idea or a concept or a thing, that has been beneficial as the result of these different alliances. Mergers and acquisitions. Several mergers have resulted in the creation of huge media conglomerates, raising concerns among citizen groups and regulators over issues like concentration of ownership and the free exchange of ideas. Basically, the idea here is that you have a company that is getting bigger because it somehow absorbed another company, either through friendly means or by hostile means. And as a result, the number of employers is shrinking while the employers themselves are growing. And you can talk about the pluses and minuses on each side of that. But the thing is that it has been more and more of a thing, especially after 1996 when the Telecommunications Act came out, and that particular piece of legislation took a lot of regulation and pretty much kind of put it aside and allowed companies to be able to grow and to acquire other companies and to become bigger and bigger. Some factors behind mergers. Some strategic factors would include convergence, the ability to leverage content. There's the barriers to new competitors. It's hard for someone that's not already in the business to get up off the ground running, at least to the certain degree of success that those are already out there are having. And the fact that there's globalization, that now you're not necessarily tied to a particular geographic market or even to a particular country, that it's much easier, even with regulations, to be able to distribute worldwide. Financial factors, valuation, tax advantages, a surplus of available capital, all these sort of things are considerations when companies merge with each other or one company acquires another. Some implications for management now. The executive level will likely be fully engaged with discussions and negotiations in developing the alliance or a partnership. You're now, as a manager, not only dealing with those within your own company, but you're also having discussions and meetings and going back and forth on certain things with those that are part of another entity. The middle and supervisory levels will take on most of the responsibility for implementing changes and new directions once a strategic partnership has been consummated. So what happens there is that the executives will form the agreement and will form the basic terms of the agreement, but it is up to those that are directly working with certain divisions, with certain employees, on making those things happen. The entire management team will also be responsible for assessing the strategic partnership. Is the alliance meeting its goals? If not, what are the factors inhibiting success? So there is going to be a lot of review and assessment, quite honestly, probably some tossing around of blame and things like that too. So it is something that it is going to be a continual process of not just implementing, but also evaluating. The rise of strategic partnerships requires managers to know not only their own operation, but also that of their partners. Know what the other company is up to. How do they operate? What's their philosophy on how to handle certain things? How to deal with workflow and things like that. Things that may be very customary and traditional in your company might completely throw the other company off, and sometimes there has to be some give and take as to how those things work out. Managers must be willing to delegate responsibilities to other parties and to carefully monitor progress. So here you're dealing with that idea, again, of looking at the other company in addition to your own. You kind of have to multitask in that way. You have to have excellent organizational and communication skills so that you're clearly communicating with your direct team, but also understanding what's going on in another division in another company. And successful managers can handle the pressures of work, family, and other personal activities in an orderly manner. So there's the stress of the work life, and then making sure that that stress does not impact what's going on in the personal life. This, by the way, assumes that you have some sort of a personal life. There's nothing wrong with a personal life balance, so long as there is certain expectations that are being met in terms of work ethic, in terms of meeting expectations at work, while also speaking up if the work expectations are unrealistic or not very, I don't want to use the word favorable. Maybe we'll just use the word fair. So there's that. There's substantial pressure to generate profits with new alliances. Managers who can successfully balance the relationship between the needs of the ownership and the public's needs and wants will be extremely valuable to their operations. Sometimes it is the job of the manager to remind the owners, the executives, that certain things that are expected may not be in the best interest of the company because, well, there may be certain pros in terms of efficiency, in terms of reduced workforce or workload or something like that. But if it results in a product that the public doesn't want, then any sort of cost-cutting measures or efficiency measures can be for naught because the quality of the product or the demand for the product winds up not being there. The reputation of a company going before what's happening within the company can also impact in these sorts of ways as well. So the manager needs to be really keen on how to negotiate what truly is best for the company in terms of every aspect of the company, not just the financial bottom dollar. That is something that takes a lot of skill and a lot of chutzpah, if you will. So that's going to do it. That's going to cover Chapter 2. Get those notes done, fill out the survey, get that submitted, bring your questions and comments to class. It always helps to have a great discussion when we're together. And hopefully you'll get a better understanding of some of the things that you may encounter in the media environment. So let's talk about it when we get together.